You're on the 14th Step. It's a podcast about addiction and recovery. My name's Mark. I'm a counselor and an addict.
My name is Skip. I'm a recovery coach and a recovering addict. Just for today,
Let's have it.
February 20th, powerlessness and personal responsibility. This is from the basic text, page 13. Bad luck. Okay. Through our inability to accept personal responsibilities, we are actually creating our own problems. So, when we refuse to take responsibility for our lives, we give away all of our personal power. We need to remember that we are powerless over our addiction, not our personal behavior. Many of us have misused the concept of powerlessness to avoid making decisions or to hold on to things we'd outgrown. We have claimed powerlessness over our own actions. We've blamed others for our circumstances rather than taking positive action to change those circumstances. If we continue to avoid responsibility by claiming that we are powerless, we set ourselves up for the same despair and misery we experienced in our active addiction. The potential for spending our recovery years feeling like victims is very real. Instead of living our lives by default, we can learn how to take and make responsible choices and take risks. We may make mistakes, but we can learn from those mistakes. A heightened awareness of ourselves and an increased willingness to accept personal responsibility gives us the freedom to change, to make choices, and to grow. Just for today, my feelings, actions, and choices are mine. I will accept responsibility for them. There was something in that one little thing that struck a chord with me and you too, I think. The potential for spending our recovery years feeling like victims is very real. Why is that such a... Why do we see that so much, do you think?
Well, it feels better to be a victim.
Yeah.
Because, number one, then I don't have to take responsibility for how I feel because it's something that's been done to me. This goes to me in that feeling that the hurt that I'm carrying around with me shouldn't be my responsibility to handle because it wasn't my hurt that I put there in the first place in a way.
Yeah, something happened to you.
This powerless thing that we hold on to, that I'm helpless, that I'm powerless, is a lot of times comes from a time when we were powerless, when we were kids, and somebody victimized us or hurt us in some kind of way, and then we carry that with us, and then it kind of changes and twists up into something when we're adults, and that anger starts to develop, and we feel like victims because we were victims. But the part that's hard is that no matter what someone has done to you, even when you had nothing to do with it, it is the burden of healing, or not the burden, but the opportunity to heal from that is squarely on the person that's been hurt.
Right.
Your perpetrator or victimizer is not going to have anything to do with that. And that's hard to let go of because in a lot of ways, if we have been hurt, it feels wrong to let go of that anger. It's almost like for people carrying that with them, it feels like you're giving your that person a pass. It's like if I have to stay angry so that person knows how much he or she has hurt me. And if I let go, then that feels too much like forgiveness. And so people get stuck in this victim mindset that is very hard to break out of. And I have heard horrific stories of child abuse and conditions that children grow up in. And so this taking personal responsibility for my own feelings is a large order. It's a mountain to climb.
Man.
But we have to do it if we want any kind of peace.
Yeah, and there's been plenty of movies made out of this about something fueling somebody to go on with their life to get revenge on that person, or they're motivated by anger and that's who they are. How many times have you heard this? Well, I'm not changing because that's just who I am. You have to accept me the way I am. I hear that all the time from people. That's just the way I am. And I'm like, well, it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, I guess my question is I've seen this so much in ministry that when the word forgive is such a hard word to deal with. But do you know how many times that people will hold something against somebody for years and years and years, and at some point enough time passes and they run into that person or they have a conversation about it, and they finally have the guts to say something to that person, and you know what happens most of the time? That person doesn't even remember what they were even talking about.
You're right.
And all these years, the victim thinks that that person has only thought about them, that it's ruled their life as much as it's controlled their life,
Right.
and they've had some horrible thing against them. And guess what? They've never even thought about it.
That's right.
And you have ruined all those years and poisoned yourself by holding on to something that really wasn't even that big of a deal.
And that's what resentment is.
It is.
It's drinking poison and expecting the other person to die from it.
Yep. And you explained that so beautifully. When we have no control over the things that happen to us in our lives when we were younger, that must be one of the most difficult things to try to help people understand. Is it comes to a point when you become an adult that you have all the control over how you deal with it now, right?
If we live as victims, if we live thinking that life is it's unfair and that we've been hurt and there's nothing we can do about it, then every opportunity or everything that happens to us is going to be seen as something that's out to get us. It's going to be seen as an obstacle in our way, and we're going to feel helpless to overcome it. When we change that perspective into realizing that my anger and my bitterness or my resentment is my own, and there are things that I can do to let it go, it kind of changes our whole perspective on life in general. And that lens of resentment that we've been viewing things with can be cleared a little bit.
Yeah.
And then we realize we don't really have any problems other than the one that's in our mind. And we start to see things more as opportunities rather than just the world being a horrible place that's full of things that are out to get me.
Because, when you look at things that way, at some point you're just going to give up.
And people do that. And I think that's what addiction is. It's surrendering to a drug. It's giving up.
Yep. And, if you look at it from the standpoint of, well, if that's all, if all life does is take from you, then what?
Why not?
What's the point?
Right. And there's a lot of people who feel that way, and they become very, very angry and bitter just for being alive. Just existing becomes an overwhelming burden.
And taking that first step out of that much resentment and despair is incredibly difficult.
We have got to experience grace. This is why this is a spiritual program. This comes from a spiritual program. We have to have help. We have to have a spiritual kind of experience.
And we really haven't ever done this on the podcast yet, but that's one of the reasons why we really started this thing, is because we're going to have an audience that might be watching from their home or from their phone or something. And you may be right there. You may be in that hopelessness and resentment place right now. And we know where you are. Mm-hmm. We've talked to many people that have been there. It's only you that can take that first step. You can reach out. You can reach out to us. You can send us a message. You can write a comment, because we see every one of these and we'll discuss these. But you have to take that first. Nobody can do it for you. You have to be the one that there's a lifeline out there, but you have to grab onto it. And I know it's hard, but you can do it.
And the first step that you take doesn't have to be a big one.
Mm-mm.
That's the beauty of recovery. Take a baby step. Just reach out to someone who wants to listen, who cares about you, someone who has been through it. That's the tiny first step that can unlock the path. You may not even see the path yet, but you have to take a step in that direction to see where that path can even go.
Yeah, that's why they call it Just for Today.
Just for today.
Mm-hmm. So we'd love to read your comments, like and subscribe. Anything you can do to help to poor recovery souls.
Thanks, guys.